Hi, everyone. This session is about payments in e-commerce. We know that consumers are increasingly going and using e-commerce. E-commerce share of total is only increasing and increasing. And we want to make sure that payments in e-commerce is as easy and simple and as secure as paying in face-to-face environment. And we want to also talk about what are the different technologies that small businesses and businesses in general can use in order to optimize and improve payments online. World has moved to digital, right? That's a reality. More than 17 billion connected devices, 7 billion mobile devices, people increasingly relying on using the mobile devices for doing all their activities. So the world has moved digital, and commerce is also moving digital with how consumers are moving. And this is obvious and being seen in terms of the share of commerce online, e-commerce as total commerce is only increasing and increasing. And this has even further accelerated with the recent COVID-19 pandemic. So it has been a trend and it's even accelerating more and more as a trend. Consumers doing commerce online, making and completing their transactions online. So the challenge is that with the move and the shift of payments online, there are areas that needs to be optimized so that we have an experience online when it comes to payments similar to the simple and secure experience that is face to face. So fraud in e-commerce is higher than fraud in face-to-face, and this has to be addressed. And I'm going to talk about technologies that address all of those challenges that are available. And authorization rates are also lower when it comes to card not present transactions or e-commerce transactions compared to card present. So fraud higher, and we know that the cost of fraud is not small. So the cost of fraud is concerning to businesses. And then authorization rates of the transaction is also lower when it's online, when it's e-commerce compared to face-to-face. And that has to improve to make sure that businesses online are optimizing the end-to-end customer experience. So with card on file tokenization, we've seen like merchants, sellers that have launched card on file tokenization. We've seen a like empirical improvement in terms of authorization rate. We've seen an improved authorization rate by an average like more than 3%. And we've also seen that payment volumes, fraud rates have also reduced by an average 26%. So the Visa token service has, like for those who have launched it, we've already seen like higher authorization rates and lower fraud rates. And I'm going to talk about more about Visa token service in the context of card on file tokenization and how does that help reducing fraud and improving authorization rates. So first thing that we need to make sure that you know is that when you're using Visa token service, what gets stored in your card on file is not the card number itself, but a 16-digit number that looks like a card. We call it a token, but it's not the actual card number. So that means that is going to help fraud reduction a lot, because there is also what we call domain control on tokens. So if a token is meant to be for you as a token requester, as a merchant, as a card on file token requester, that token is restricted to that use case. So if for some reason that token gets compromised and it's being used somewhere else, it's not going to work. It's going to be blocked by VisaNet in terms of the use of that token. So the other thing that I want to make sure is also clear is that with every token, there is a unique cryptogram that goes with that transaction. That cryptogram is securely generated, and then it goes with that transaction to make sure that the payload is unique. The token and the cryptogram combination is unique. And that also carries lots of additional information that's carried to the issuer, which eventually also will lead to higher authorization rate and lower fraud rates. One other important aspect of tokens is that they have dynamic capabilities. So information about the token can dynamically be changed. Let me give you a concrete example. For example, the card expiry date. Assuming as a consumer you have the card provisioned and card on file with you as a merchant, when the card expiry date comes and this card is renewed, because consumer doesn't have to log in and update the card information with everywhere where that card is provisioned. It's like automatically in the background the card expiry are updated through card life cycle management for that token automatically in the background. And also, like every merchant, every card on file token requester will receive a different token on the same card. So I'm a consumer, I have my card, I provision my card with you as a card on file token requester, you will get one token. If I provision it with another merchant, I'll get another different merchant, different token. And that token, as I mentioned earlier, is domain specific. All of that increases the security and increases the authorization rates of those transactions. Also, there are lots of developments and lots of added features on the token platform. For example, the Cloud Token Framework, which enables binding a device to the token, so binding the token to a device, which means that the consumer can authenticate themselves with the biometrics of that device, etc. Or Visa Card Enrollment Hub, which enables provisioning of cards, of tokens, from the mobile banking app directly into the card on file of the merchant or the seller. Or the card enrichment service. I'll talk more about tokens as we proceed with this presentation. So one other very important aspect that I want to clarify is that the Visa token can be complementary to your gateway token. So there are different scenarios. So I'm going to show you these two scenarios talk about these two scenarios that are appearing on the screen. So first of all, it's a gateway token. So you're getting already a token from a token service, like you're getting from your gateway a token. So the Visa PAN is what you see in yellow, and you can see that what you end up with is like the gateway is replacing the Visa information with their own token, and you're getting the gateway token. This is not what I'm talking about in this session. What I'm talking about is that when the merchant gets a Visa token, and this is where you get all the benefits in terms of the higher authorization rates, the lower fraud that I'm talking about, the improved user experience, you need to be using a Visa token. But what I want to say is that you can use a Visa token while using your same gateway. So what happens is what you see in the lower scenario. So the Visa token in yellow. So the gateway, your gateway, maps their card to their token to the card, and then gives you their token, which is mapped to a Visa token. So in this case, you are benefiting from the Visa token and all the benefits that come of higher auth rates, etc., of the Visa token, while your setup with your gateway is still the same. So that means that your gateway, your e-commerce gateway, need to be connected and enabled for token service, and then the mapping of the Visa token to the gateway token happens in the with the gateway, and you as a merchant will still get your interface with the gateway, while in the background the gateway is interfacing with Visa token service. And that way it still also works, and you can get all the benefits that I'm talking about in the session about card on file tokens. Three added services that also can be enabled with Visa token service are the Visa Card Enrollment Hub. So this is where consumers can start provisioning their cards directly from the mobile banking app to your card on file with a click. So let's assume the issuer has also enabled and integrated to Visa Card Enrollment Hub, and you as a merchant also integrated to Visa Card Enrollment Hub. So then the consumer will see an option: I want to push my credentials from my mobile banking app. They click on their card, and then the card information is provisioned in your card on file. Actually, what gets provisioned is the token. It's not the card itself, it's a token that gets provisioned on your card on file. So that simplifies the friction of enrollment. It helps a lot in terms of removing the friction of customer enrollment. And we know that as much more customers are getting online, it means we're going to have lots of first-time users, and these first-time users need to provision for the first time. So the Card Enrollment Hub can be a big help in that regard. The Visa Credential Enrichment Service is that if you want to update all your existing cards with tokens, so not about only new cards, the existing cards on your card on file with tokens to get all the benefits that I'm talking about on tokens, then the Visa Credential Enrichment Service can help updates all the expiry dates on the stored credentials for the stored cards. And the Cloud Token Framework, which allows device binding, validates ends up in terms of sending all this device information all the way to the issuer that will enable eventually authorization using biometrics such as fingerprint for the consumer, and remove the friction of authorization. So Visa Token Service was introduced back in 2014, and lots of use cases have been introduced since then, including the mobile payments, mobile tap to pay, such as the Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, but then also card on file token requesters. And we're seeing lots of momentum now in terms of sellers integrating with Visa token service, or e-commerce gateways integrating with Visa token servers for the use case of card on file tokenization to benefit from the higher authorization rates and the reduced friction and reduced fraud rates in the use of Visa token service. So yeah, as I mentioned, with the use of tokens, that is will reflect with higher authorization rates, which means higher revenues for the businesses, better customer experience, because it touches on the different touch points of e-commerce, whether at the provisioning or at the authorization rates, better control and visibility to the consumers in terms of where their tokens are, and new ways of opens the way of more and more innovation coming on top of Visa token service. So for you as a seller, as a merchant, you, as a next step, you need to make sure that you can enable card on file tokenization with the lifecycle management, so that you can get all those expire updates about the token that I've been talking about, and by like either connecting directly to Visa token service, or as a small seller, the best way is through your gateway. So you need to make sure that the gateway that you're working with is enabled for your e-commerce gateway is enabled for uh, uh, Visa token service. As a gateway, you need to be token ready, and also you need to support the connection to the Visa card enrollment hub, so that the card provisioning that I was talking about can also happen. So the second thing is enablement of the Visa card enrollment hub. And thirdly is click to pay, or secure remote commerce, or click to pay. And this is the subject of the next session that I'm going to talk about. So click to pay with Visa. So while card on file payment experience is usually frictionless, it's a nice user experience. You tap on your card and you can check out because your card information is already provisioned. The reality is that online guest checkouts do exist and exist still frequently, and they are inconsistent and in some cases, or in many cases, sometimes confusing to the consumers. With all these fields that they have to fill, especially as we go to smaller and smaller screens, users using their mobile, you have to fill all those fields, sometimes like more than 20 fields: first name, last name, card number, expiry date, address information, etc., all of that. What we want to transform is that cumbersome payment experience, or suboptimal payment experience, into a simple click-to-pay experience where the customer click on their card and complete the payment. Similar to how tap-to-pay in the face-to-face environment is. You just click, you just tap your card or your mobile or your wearable on the payment device, and it happens. As quick as that, as simple as that, and as secure as that in terms of payment. So this is where the secure remote commerce standard, this is why the secure remote commerce standard has been introduced. It's one common mark icon that wherever you see, and you see the Visa logo next to it, it means Visa is accepted on click to pay. And as a seller, you need to make sure that you have the click to pay icon. You're integrated to click to pay, and then obviously consumers need to be set up on click to pay. And the good news is that once you integrate once, it serves all networks that are participating in click to pay. It's one global standard based on the EMV standard, and all then you integrate once as a seller, and then you can start accepting all payment networks that are enabled for click to pay with the same integration. So the benefits of click to pay with Visa. One is that it's easy and secure. No passwords are needed. No form fields to be entered. Reduces all the friction of entering the information, the consumer information. It can be enabled with tokens, so it supports tokens, and eventually supports recognized users as users use their click to pay more than once. It also supports device recognition, and that's a capability that eventually will lead into customer authentication using the biometrics. It supports everything that I've been talking about in terms of tokens, which means higher authorization rates, also higher conversion because it's less friction, especially when compared to guest checkout, lower card abandonment rates, improved auth rates, and reduced fraud rates. And as I mentioned, it's standardized. It's based on standards. The payment process in terms of steps is a standard from a customer experience perspective, as well as from an integration perspective for you as a seller. So that's the mark or the icon, the click to pay icon. It's a standard based on the EMV standards, supports tokens, supports the cloud token framework, recognize the user and the device to reduce the fraud. It also is enabled with the Visa card enrollment hub that I talked about earlier, which means that cards can be pushed to click to pay by issuers so that you reduce the enrollment friction, and it's passwordless. So passwords are not needed in click to pay to enable a frictionless checkout. I'm going to go through some examples. So before going into the flow examples, let me just give a little bit of an overview on the participants in the ecosystem. So the issuer, obviously the bank, for setting up the cards, the sellers by putting the icon or the click to pay icon on your side and being integrated to click to pay. What we call the digital terminal, again, because it's a standard terminal that enables, it could be the gateway here, that enables the experience, that enables the triggering of the experience, and then the experience facilitator, and obviously at the end the merchant that shows the completes shows the payment details and eventually completes the transaction. That's the example payment flows, starting with a returning user. So this assumes that the customer has performed a payment before using click to pay. So if your checkout flow is enabled with click to pay, so once the consumer clicks on your checkout button, they will get options of cards that are enrolled in click to pay. So these are in addition to any cards that you have on file. So if you have a new customer that you don't have any card on file for that customer, or the customer is not comfortable provisioning a card on file, you will get in the background all the cards that are provisioned on click to pay for that consumer. So once the consumer click on checkout, they will see as an option the cards that they can check out with. So let's assume they have two cards. So this is the second screen that you see. As you click on that card, you will get the card details. Again, consumer doesn't have to do anything except selecting the card, and then you can see that you confirm the card information and you place the order, and the payment experience is completed. So it's just clicks. There's no manual entry, and if you have one default card, it reduces to a simple click, right? You don't have to even select which cards as a consumer. You just one click, and that completes the payment transaction. Now, if we add a little bit of complexity, if it's a returning user, so on a new device, so that's the first time you're using that device. Again, as I mentioned earlier, once you use the device once, the device is remembered, and then it becomes the experience that I showed you earlier. But if you're using the device for the first time, so as you click on checkout, the consumer will get a prompt with a one-time password to be entered, an OTP to be entered, to confirm that device is the device of that consumer. Once the consumer enters the OTP correctly, the same experience continues. They will get their card options, and accordingly, they will select the card and complete the transaction with a few remaining clicks. So I want to wrap up on the two areas of card on file and tokenization and click to pay by just reminding sellers on these three areas, just reiterating. So first, click to pay. By participating in click to pay, you are making sure that you are serving guest checkout users that haven't input their card information on your card on file in a much more secure and frictionless way. So click to pay participation is to serve the guest checkout experience. You also, by enabling card on file tokenization, you are enabling your card on file with tokens, which means you're benefiting from the card on file lifecycle management. You're replacing the PANs stored on file with network tokens, and which brings you all the token benefit. And finally, your token readiness will ensure that you are connected to the Visa card enrollment hub, which means you can become an option for consumers that they can provision their card information easily and simply to your card on file. So this is a reminder of these three very important capabilities that sellers can benefit in order to remove friction and improve the customer experience and the security of online payments. The third and final area that I want to quickly also overview is Visa Secure in relation to e-commerce. So what Visa Secure does is that it helps merchants and issuers authenticate transactions with an enhanced data exchange, which reduces the step-up friction. So you're all familiar with 3D Secure and how you receive that OTP, and then you need to enter that OTP. So what Visa Secure, that is based on global EMV 3D Secure program, does is that it introduces lots of additional information that is exchanged among the stakeholders, the merchants that provide more information about the transaction, the consumer, the issuer that identifies and receives all this new kind of information, the consumer that many times with this exchange of the additional data and the issuer's ability to be risk-based in terms of their authentication. So once the issuers receive this additional information, they analyze it, and based on some risk scores and the additional information that's being sent, the authentication is now potentially without the OTP. So it doesn't have to be, it's invisible to the consumer. It doesn't have to be that you are receiving an OTP every time. In some cases, and hopefully as you more and more information, transactional information is available, that it's like most of the times eventually the transaction authentication is invisible to the consumer, so it happens risk-based in the background, and the consumer doesn't have to enter an OTP manually. This is what we call risk-based authentication. So what this means is that you're achieving the same level of security of the transaction while you're removing the friction of waiting for an OTP to be received and then the consumer entering that OTP. And we know how much sellers don't like that interruption in the payment transaction or in the commerce end-to-end transaction, which leads in some cases to sales abandonment and lower authorization rates. So with Visa Secure, by enabling yourself to Visa Secure as a merchant, you're enabling risk-based authentication, which means that lower friction in the authentication process with the same level of security. Thank you for listening. For more information, you can visit Visa ready. Also, you can also definitely contact your payment service provider or e-commerce gateway to discuss different ways of how you can implement Visa Click to Pay if you are in a market where Click to Pay has already launched, Visa Secure, and also Visa Token Service for card on file e-commerce. Thank you again for listening and best of luck.